The hospital lights are too bright. They burn through my eyelids even when I close them, making everything feel exposed and raw. I'm lying on a gurney and I can feel the blood seeping through the white sheets beneath me, warm and wrong. The metallic smell fills my nostrils. My body feels disconnected, like it belongs to someone else, but the pain is definitely mine. Sharp, pulling, tearing pain that radiates from my abdomen where my baby should still be safe. My 7-year-old stepson Asher is standing by the door, and I notice his small hands are gripping the metal railing so tight his knuckles have gone white. He's been silent since we arrived, just watching everything with those serious gray eyes that see too much for a child his age. The fluorescent lights cast shadows under his eyes, making him look even younger and more vulnerable than usual. Dr. Reeves is explaining to my husband Devin how pregnant women need to be more careful on stairs. His voice has that practiced neutrality that medical professionals perfect, but I catch Nurse Trina behind him, her face tight with suspicion. She keeps looking at the bruises on my arms, the ones Devin said came from him trying to catch me. The doctor continues his clinical explanation about fall risks during pregnancy, statistics about accidents in the home, how the center of gravity changes as the baby grows. Devin is nodding along, playing the part of the concerned husband perfectly. His hand rests on my shoulder in what probably looks like comfort to everyone watching, but I can feel the warning pressure of his fingers. "I tried to catch her, doctor," he says, his voice cracking with what sounds like genuine emotion. "I was right behind her, but I just couldn't reach her in time. She's been so unsteady lately with the pregnancy." That's when his mother Nadine decides to add her performance to this twisted theater. She's standing at the foot of my bed, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her designer purse, and she looks at the doctor with this expression of resigned disappointment. "Maybe this baby wasn't meant for her anyway," she says, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Some women just aren't built for motherhood. Their bodies know it. Perhaps this is nature's way of correcting a mistake." The words hit me like physical blows, each one precisely calculated to wound. She's said variations of this theme for 2 years, ever since Devin brought me home as his new wife. Not good enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough to replace Devin's first wife, her precious daughter-in-law who died so tragically 3 years ago. I close my eyes, trying to shut out her voice, the lights, the smell of blood and disinfectant. I want to scream that this wasn't an accident, that Devin pushed me, that he pulled my hand off the railing when I tried to save myself. But who would believe me? The grieving woman who just lost her baby, hysterical with pain and loss. Against Devin, the successful businessman, the devoted father, the man who already tragically lost one wife. That's when Asher's voice cuts through the clinical coldness of the hospital corridor. It's clear and steady, nothing like the tentative whisper he usually uses around his father. "Doctor, should I tell you what Daddy did to my stepmom on those stairs?" The temperature in that corridor drops 20 degrees. I feel it in the sudden stillness, the way everyone freezes mid-motion, like someone hit pause on the world. Devin's hand on my shoulder turns to stone. Nadine's purse drops from her fingers, hitting the linoleum floor with a sharp crack that echoes off the walls. Dr. Reeves turns slowly toward Asher, his professional composure cracking just enough to show genuine concern. "What do you mean, son?" the doctor asks gently, but Asher isn't looking at him. He's staring straight at his father, and there's something in his young face that makes my heart break and soar simultaneously. It's defiance mixed with terror, courage wrestling with years of programmed silence. Devin recovers first, dropping into concerned father mode with practiced ease. Asher's been through a lot today. He's confused, probably in shock from seeing Celeste fall. Children often misremember traumatic events, don't they, doctor? But Asher's grip on that railing gets tighter, like it's the only thing keeping him upright, keeping him brave. His small chest rises and falls with rapid breaths, and I realize this little boy has been carrying a secret that's about to change everything. He's been waiting for this moment, gathering courage I didn't know a 7-year-old could possess, and now that he's started, there's no stopping the truth from spilling out. 3 hours earlier, I was standing in our Victorian home's kitchen, my hand resting on my 5-month bump, feeling the baby flutter for the first time that morning. It was like butterfly wings against my palm, delicate and miraculous. The morning sun streamed through the bay windows, casting warm golden patches across the marble countertops Devin had insisted on installing last year. Everything looked perfect from the outside, the kind of kitchen you see in home design magazines, but perfection had become my prison. Asher was sitting at the breakfast table, hunched over his coloring book with the concentration only children can muster. His tongue poked out slightly as he worked on what looked like our family portrait, complete with a tiny baby in my arms. He'd drawn himself standing protectively next to me and Devin off to the side, separated from us by what looked like a dark line. Children see everything, even when we think they don't. "You're going to be the best big brother," I told him, walking over to ruffle his dark hair. He looked up at me with those serious gray eyes he inherited from his father. But while Devin's eyes had turned cold over the years, Asher still held warmth when he looked at me. "I'll protect the baby, Celeste. I promise," he said, and something in his voice made me pause. It was too serious, too determined for a 7-year-old making casual breakfast conversation. Before I could ask what he meant, Devin walked in adjusting his Italian silk tie, his presence immediately changing the atmosphere of the room. He barely acknowledged either of us, just moved to the coffee maker with the mechanical precision that had replaced any warmth in our marriage. "Mother's coming for dinner tonight," he announced, not asked, just declared like a decree from on high. My stomach tightened immediately, that familiar knot of dread that came with any mention of Nadine. "She thinks you trapped me with this pregnancy," Devin had told me last week, delivering his mother's cruel assessment like it was perfectly reasonable, like it was something any husband would share with his pregnant wife. "Just try to make her comfortable tonight. You know how she gets when she feels disrespected." I wanted to ask how I could have trapped him when he was the one who insisted on trying for a baby, who monitored my ovulation calendar more closely than I did, who had turned conception into another business project he needed to succeed at. But I'd learned that questions like that led to conversations that left bruises, both visible and invisible. The morning felt heavy with unspoken tension, the kind that had become our daily bread. Devin had been different lately, though different suggested he'd changed when really, he'd just stopped hiding who he always was. He checked my phone every night, scrolling through texts and calls with the thoroughness of a detective. He questioned where I went, who I talked to, how long I spent at the grocery store. "You're getting clumsy with pregnancy brain," he'd say, when I'd find bruises I didn't remember getting. Purple fingerprints on my upper arms, tender spots on my ribs. "You need to be more careful, for the baby's sake." The concern in his voice never reached his eyes. Asher would watch these interactions silently, always observing from doorways or around corners, always thinking. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at his father with an expression too knowing for his age, like he was solving a puzzle he didn't want to understand. "Celeste isn't clumsy," Asher had said last week when Devin commented on a bruise on my wrist. "She's careful. She's always careful." Devin had turned to look at his son with an expression that made my blood run cold, and Asher hadn't spoken up again until today. I moved through my morning routine, preparing Devin's breakfast exactly how he liked it. 2 eggs over easy with the yolks still runny but not too runny. Whole wheat toast golden but not too crispy. Orange juice freshly squeezed because the bottled kind gave him headaches. Each specification had been learned through criticism, through meals thrown away because they weren't quite right, through silent treatments that lasted days. "I have that contractor coming today to look at the basement," I mentioned carefully, keeping my voice neutral. "The foundation crack you wanted fixed." Devin's head snapped up from his phone. "What time?" "Around 2, he said. "I don't want you alone with strange men in the house," he said, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "Reschedule it for when I'm home." "But you said it needed to be fixed urgently because of the water damage," I reminded him gently. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Asher's coloring had stopped, his crayon suspended above the paper. We all waited to see which version of Devin would respond, the reasonable husband or the other one, the one who saw threats and betrayals everywhere. By afternoon, Nadine had arrived early, sweeping into our home like she owned it, which in her mind she probably did. She'd paid for the down payment, a fact she never let me forget. Her perfume, expensive and suffocating, filled every room she entered. She immediately began her inspection, running her finger along the mantel, checking for dust, examining the cushions for pet hair we didn't have, looking for any flaw that would confirm I wasn't worthy of her son. "Devon's first wife never let herself go during pregnancy," she said, settling into the living room chair like a queen on her throne, her eyes traveling deliberately over my swollen ankles and the way my dress pulled slightly across my growing belly. Rebecca kept herself so neat, so put together. Some women just handle it better, I suppose. It's about self-discipline, really. Devon sat there, scrolling through his phone, letting her words land like punches. He'd perfected this routine, letting his mother do the cutting while he stayed silent, complicit in his neutrality. Sometimes I wondered if this was why he'd married me, to give his mother a new target for the venom she could no longer direct at Rebecca. "I've prepared your favorite tea, Nadine," I said, trying to deflect, but she waved her hand dismissively. "The good china is upstairs in the guest room closet. I specifically told Devon to keep it there so it wouldn't get damaged by daily use. You should know this by now, Celeste. Rebecca always remembered these things." Rebecca, the ghost I could never compete with. The perfect first wife who died in a tragic car accident that everyone said Devon had never quite recovered from. Strange how no one ever mentioned the details of that accident, how the conversations always shifted when I asked about her. I excused myself to get the china from upstairs, grateful for even a moment's escape from Nadine's surgical dissection of my inadequacies. The beautiful curved staircase that had sold us on this house now seemed impossibly steep. My center of gravity had shifted with the pregnancy, and I held the banister carefully as I climbed. I was halfway up when I heard Devon's footsteps behind me, quick and purposeful. My body tensed automatically, a learned response to his approach when we were alone. "You embarrassed me today," he said quietly, his voice carrying that dangerous calm that made my pulse quicken. "The neighbor mentioned seeing you talking to that contractor working next door. Jim Henderson, wasn't it? What were you discussing?" "He asked if we needed any work done," I said, gripping the banister tighter, feeling the wood grain under my palm. "I told him we already had someone scheduled, that's all." "You were laughing," Devon continued, moving closer. "Jim said you seemed very friendly, very comfortable with a strange man." "Devon, I was being polite. The conversation lasted maybe 2 minutes." "You think I'm stupid?" His voice dropped lower, more controlled, which was always worse than yelling. "You think I don't see what you're doing? Flirting with other men while carrying my child?" I turned to face him, confusion and fear fighting for dominance in my chest. "Devon, I'm 5 months pregnant with your child. I love you. What are you talking about?" "Love," he repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "Is that what you told Jim? Is that why you were laughing so freely with him when you can barely smile at your own husband?" That's when I saw Asher at the bottom of the stairs, watching us. He stood perfectly still, his coloring book clutched against his chest, those gray eyes taking in everything. Devon noticed him too, his jaw tightening with irritation. "Go to your room, son," he ordered. But Asher didn't move. He stood there, frozen, as if he knew something was about to happen, something he needed to witness. "Now, Asher!" Devon's voice cracked like a whip, but still, the boy didn't move. "You need to learn to be more careful," Devon said, turning back to me, his hand reaching for my arm. His grip was firm, controlling, his fingers pressing into the spots where old bruises were just fading. "Accidents happen on stairs all the time. Pregnant women especially should watch their step." There was something in his voice, a threat wrapped in concern that made my blood turn ice cold. I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Devon, please, you're hurting me." "Hurting you?" He laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "I'm trying to help you, Celeste, trying to keep you from making mistakes you'll regret. But you just don't learn, do you?" The next moments happened in slow motion, but also too fast to fully process. His free hand pressed against my shoulder, not hard at first, just enough to make me step backward, to make me miss the security of the step beneath my foot. I woke up in the ambulance with Asher holding my hand. His small fingers were interlaced with mine, and I could feel them trembling slightly, but his grip was fierce, determined. The paramedic was adjusting an IV in my other arm, and I could hear the siren wailing above us, cutting through traffic. Everything hurt, but the worst pain was the terrible emptiness where I'd felt those butterfly movements just hours before. "I'm coming with her," Asher had apparently insisted when they loaded me into the ambulance, refusing to let go even when Devin tried to pull him away. The paramedic told me later that the boy had planted his feet and said with absolute clarity, "She needs me. I'm not leaving her alone." "Ma'am, can you tell me your name?" the paramedic asked, shining a light in my eyes. "Do you remember what happened?" Before I could answer, Asher spoke up, his voice barely audible over the siren. "I saw everything. I saw what he did." He kept repeating it like a mantra, like he was afraid if he stopped saying it, the truth might disappear. At the hospital, they rushed me into examination, and then Dr. Reeves delivered the news with practiced compassion. The baby was gone. Internal bleeding, emergency surgery needed. Each word landed like a stone dropping into still water, sending ripples of grief through my entire body. 5 months of hope, of planning, of dreams, gone in one violent moment on those stairs. "Falls during pregnancy are unfortunately common," Dr. Reeves said, making notes on his chart. "The center of gravity shifts. Balance becomes compromised. You need to be more careful on stairs, especially as you progress through pregnancy." Devin nodded solemnly beside him, his performance flawless. "She's been so clumsy lately, doctor. I've been worried about her. I tried to catch her, but I was too far away. If only I'd been quicker." The lies flowed from his mouth like honey, smooth and sweet and poisonous. I wanted to scream, to tell everyone that he'd pushed me, that his hands had deliberately caused this tragedy, but my throat felt closed, choked with grief and fear. Who would believe me? The hysterical woman who just lost her baby against the calm, collected husband. Nadine arrived shortly after, her heels clicking against the hospital floor like a countdown to more cruelty. She surveyed the scene, took in my pale face, the blood-stained sheets they hadn't yet changed, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not surprise, recognition. "Maybe this baby wasn't meant for her anyway," she said to the doctor, her voice carrying that particular brand of upper-class condescension she'd perfected. "Some women's bodies just aren't built for childbearing. My Devin deserves better. He's already suffered one tragedy with his first wife. Now this." Nurse Trina, who had been adjusting my IV, stopped mid-motion. She looked between Devin and Nadine, then at me, and I saw understanding dawn in her eyes. She'd seen this before, the two perfect explanations, the victim blaming, the family closing ranks. When she leaned over to check my monitors, she whispered so only I could hear, "If you need help, just say the word." I know what this is. But I couldn't speak. The words were trapped behind years of conditioned silence, behind the fear of not being believed, behind the grief that was crushing my chest. I closed my eyes, feeling tears slide down my cheeks, hot and helpless. That's when Asher made the decision for all of us. He had been standing quietly by the door since we arrived, his small fingers wrapped around the metal railing that ran along the hospital corridor. I hadn't noticed how white his knuckles had become, how his whole body was trembling with the effort of holding something in. He watched his father and grandmother spin their web of lies, watched the doctor write their fiction into medical records, watched me lying there, unable to defend myself. His little chest rose and fell with rapid breaths, like he was preparing to jump off a high dive. I saw him look at the phone in his pocket, his mother's old iPhone that he'd kept hidden for 3 years. He touched it briefly, like a talisman giving him strength. Then he looked at me, and in his 7-year-old face, I saw a resolution that belonged to someone much older, someone who had decided that truth was worth more than safety. The moment stretched between us, and I saw him make his choice. He straightened his small shoulders, lifted his chin, and took a deep breath that seemed to pull courage from the very air around him. His voice, when it came, would be clear and unwavering, nothing like the whisper he usually used around his father. He was ready to shatter the silence that had protected his father's secrets for far too long. "Doctor," Asher's voice rang out clear and steady, cutting through the hushed hospital corridor like a blade. "Should I tell you what Daddy did to my stepmom on these stairs?" The corridor went completely silent. Every sound seemed to stop, from the distant beeping of machines to the shuffle of nurses' shoes. Dr. Reeves froze with his pen halfway to the chart. Nurse Trina's hand stilled on my IV. Devon's entire body went rigid beside me, and I could see the muscle in his jaw twitching. A sign I'd learned meant danger. Devon lunged forward, reaching for his son. "Asher, you're confused. You didn't see anything. You were downstairs when Celeste fell." "I saw everything," Asher interrupted, stepping back from his father's reach, but keeping his grip on the railing. His voice grew stronger with each word. "I saw you push her. I saw you pull her hand off the railing when she tried to hold on. I heard you tell her she needs to learn to be more careful." Dr. Reeves slowly put down his clipboard, his full attention now on the small boy. "Asher, this is very important. Can you tell me exactly what you saw?" Devon tried again, his voice taking on that dangerous edge I knew so well. "Son, you're upset. You're imagining things. Sometimes when bad things happen, our minds play tricks." "My mind isn't playing tricks," Asher said firmly. He looked directly at Dr. Reeves, ignoring his father completely. "This isn't the first time. He pushed my real mom down the stairs too. She didn't die in a car accident." The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. Nadine's face drained of all color, her carefully maintained composure cracking. "The child is obviously traumatized and making things up. He was only 4 when Rebecca died. He couldn't possibly remember." "Grandma knows," Asher continued, his small voice carrying enormous weight. "She helped clean up the blood and told me I was dreaming when I asked why Mommy was at the bottom of the stairs that morning. She said Mommy had gone to the hospital and then to heaven. But I remember everything. The sound she made when she fell, the way her neck looked wrong, how Daddy stood at the top of the stairs for a long time before calling anyone. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Everything was clicking into place. Rebecca's mysterious car accident that no one wanted to discuss. The way Devon's first in-laws had completely cut contact. The fear I sometimes saw in delivery people and neighbors who'd known Rebecca. "I have proof," Asher said quietly, and pulled out an old iPhone from his pocket. The case was pink with worn stickers of unicorns and rainbows. Rebecca's phone. "Mom recorded everything. She was scared of him. She made videos and sent them to the cloud. She told me her password in case something happened. It was my birthday, 04172017. Devon's face transformed from controlled anger to naked panic. "That's enough, Asher. Give me that phone right now." But Dr. Reeves had already pressed the emergency button, and security guards appeared in the doorway. Nurse Trina moved protectively between Devon and Asher, her body language making it clear she wouldn't let him near the boy. "I want to see what's on that phone, Doctor," Reeves said, his professional demeanor replaced with stern authority. "Security, please ensure Mr. Devon remains here." Asher handed over the phone with shaking hands. "The videos are in a hidden folder. Mom showed me how to find it. She said if anything happened to her, I should show them to a police officer or a doctor, someone who could help." As Dr. Reeves and security reviewed the phone, we could all hear Rebecca's voice coming from the speakers, terrified, pleading, the sound of impacts. Devon's voice making threats. "No one will believe you. Accidents happen all the time. You'll never leave me. Think about what happens to Asher if you're gone." Officer Hendricks arrived within minutes. Nurse Trina had called them the moment Asher started speaking, recognizing the signs of domestic violence she'd seen too many times before. As they reviewed more videos, found photos of Rebecca's injuries, text messages begging her sister for help, Devon's carefully constructed world crumbled piece by piece. "You little brat," Devon snarled at Asher, but the security guards held him back. "I'm your father. Everything I did was for you." "My real mom told me to be brave," Asher said, tears finally starting to fall down his young face. "She said someday I'd need to protect someone. I couldn't save my baby brother or sister, but I could save Celeste. I could tell the truth." The police handcuffed Devon while reading him his rights. Nadine tried to leave, but Officer Hendricks stopped her. "Ma'am, we'll need to speak with you about your knowledge of Rebecca's death." 3 months later, I'm sitting in a new apartment with Asher. The adoption papers are spread across the coffee table, waiting for my signature. It turns out Devin never formally adopted him after his mother's death, making it easier for me to gain custody when Devin was arrested. His parental rights were terminated after the police found enough evidence to charge him with Rebecca's murder and the attempted murder of our unborn child. The investigation revealed that Rebecca had been trying to leave him, had contacted a divorce lawyer, and had been documenting abuse for months before her death. Nadine is facing charges as an accessory after the fact. The videos on that phone revealed she had helped cover up the first murder, convincing everyone it was an accident, paying off the funeral director to have a closed casket, silencing questions with money and threats. She'd even helped Devin create the car accident story, complete with a wrecked vehicle they'd purchased from a junkyard. The web of lies they'd spun was intricate, but a 7-year-old boy's courage had unraveled it all. Asher is in therapy now, finally able to process the trauma he's been carrying. His therapist says he shows remarkable resilience, but there are nights when he wakes up screaming, remembering both falls, both mothers at the bottom of those stairs. I hold him during those nights, and we cry together for the losses we've both endured. I knew he was dangerous, he told me last week during one of our morning talks, but I was too scared before. When I saw him hurt you and the baby, I knew I couldn't let him do it again. Mom made me promise to be brave if he hurt someone else. The baby I lost still aches in my heart like a phantom limb. Sometimes I catch myself rubbing my flat stomach, remembering those butterfly movements that lasted such a short time. But Asher and I are healing together, building something new from the ashes of our trauma. He draws pictures now, not of the family we lost, but of the family we're becoming. Just the two of us, but whole nonetheless. He draws his two mothers as angels watching over us, always including the baby that never got to be born. They're friends now, he tells me with the certainty only children possess. They're both proud of us for being brave, and they're taking care of the baby until we see them again someday. Dr. Reeves testified at the trial about the suspicious nature of my injuries, how they weren't consistent with a simple fall, how the bruising patterns suggested force and struggle. Nurse Trina became a friend, checking in on us regularly. She told me she saved 17 women in similar situations because she learned to recognize the signs and act on them. Your story, she said, will help me save more. The prosecutor told us that Rebecca's family had suspected Devin, but could never prove anything. They'd been cut off completely after the funeral, Devin claiming they were too painful a reminder. They've reached out now, wanting to be part of Asher's life, to tell him stories about his mother that Devin had tried to erase. He has grandparents again, an aunt and uncle, cousins his age, a whole family that Devin had stolen from him. Last week, Asher and I planted a tree in the park for the baby we lost and for Rebecca. The small oak sapling will grow strong and tall, roots deep in the earth, branches reaching toward the sky. As we patted down the soil around its base, Asher looked up at me with those serious gray eyes that no longer hold fear. We're still a family, right? Even if it's just us two? He asked, dirt smudged on his cheek. I pulled him close. This brave little boy who saved my life, who carried an impossible burden for 3 years, who found his voice when it mattered most. We're absolutely a family, and you kept your promise to both your moms. You protected the baby the only way you could, by making sure the truth came out. You protected me. You protected yourself. You're the bravest person I know. Sometimes heroes come in the smallest packages, with the quietest voices, carrying the heaviest secrets. Asher taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but speaking the truth even when your voice shakes, even when the adults around you are building castles of lies. He saved not just my life, but his own future, breaking a cycle of violence with 7-year-old hands that refused to let go of the truth. The stairs in that old Victorian house took so much from us, but they also revealed the monster hiding behind a perfect suburban facade. And in that horrible moment of loss and revelation, a little boy's courage brought justice for 2 women and saved countless others who might have been next. If this story touched you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below about the everyday heroes in your life. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories of survival and courage.